What do you want for breakfast, Isabel?
Yeah, please have some veggie crumpets.
And what do you want on your crumpets? Do you want Vegemite?
Yes, please. Yeah, that definitely needs another mix, another 1 minute, and then maybe another 1 minute.
This is supposed to take 90 seconds in the microwave, you know. That's how you're supposed to eat it. Yeah, eat it when it's rock hard.
The Langley home is busy in the mornings.
Have you got the milk out?
Yeah, I've got the milk out.
The family live in Tagadi, a small rural hamlet 100 kilometres northeast of Melbourne.
Yeah, it's pretty noisy and chaotic as a general rule.
Kevin, that's
You all go the same day for the
Yeah.
practice? Yeah. Wait, have you got a note?
Yeah.
Well, where is it?
Naomi's a social worker.
Is that the best condition it can be in?
And Andrew runs their bed and breakfast.
Talent quest.
That's different.
You think you've got the morning under control, everyone's up early and something always falls off the wagon.
So this morning you're running a bit late, you haven't had a shower yet.
So am I.
No.
The couple have 2 children. Hattie's 8 and Isabel's 11.
Oh, they're best of friends, best of friends. I think Hattie really adores Isabel. She's looked up to her since she was a really, as long as I can remember.
There you go.
Always imitated Isabel whenever they were playing.
Okay, table.
They're sisters. They have the best of fights too. They get on each other's nerves at times.
Do you girls always get along, or do you fight sometimes?
Fight a little bit, but not all the time.
What do you fight about, Isabel?
Lots of things. Like sometimes if Isabel keeps my the Barbie box open in my room.
No one even said that you got to keep it anyways.
It's both of us and I don't like Barbie, so
You don't like them.
you can put in your room. Decision made.
Creepy.
Hattie and Isabel both have bright futures, but one sibling may have a few more challenges than the other, as one was born a boy.
There was probably a couple of months where she'd started a conversation with me saying, I just feel weird, I don't feel right.
But nothing prepared Naomi for what her son was about to tell her.
Just, said to me, I don't like my body, I don't feel right in my body. And I said, well, what do you mean? I said, I think I started off on a tangent and said, oh, well, lots of kids feel that way. And it's normal to feel all weird in your body, and your body's growing and all of those sorts of things, completely jumping to the wrong conclusion. And she said, no, I feel like I'm a girl, I'm in the wrong body.
This was within weeks of their son Campbell turning 10.
I just said to my mum that I didn't want to be a boy. I felt like a girl, and that I'm sick of living in this body.
Was it making you sad?
A little.
And how did Mum and Dad react?
Well, my mum was rather calm about it. So was my dad.
I think it's a bit of an emotional roller coaster. Initially, my thoughts were for Campbell then. It was, oh, geez, what's life going to deal? This is going to be barriers. These barriers you're really going to want to put up with.
We'd had conversations. Campbell, he may end up being gay when he grows up, and, we're kind of prepared for that. Had these sort of little images of, standing with a rainbow flag and, I was all for it. It was going to be great. When Isabel told me that night, Andrew and I sort of said, why couldn't she have just been gay? It would have been a lot easier than this at that time. That's what we'd sort of felt. And obviously they're two completely separate things.
Campbell was born on the 6th of June 2003. And from a toddler, he always preferred girls' things.
Did you ever like boys' things?
Never. My entire life I've used traditional girls' toys.
I love sport. Could not get Campbell into sport at all. We had Lego and Matchbox cars, had no interest in them. As soon as we're home from where we're straight into dress up, straight into either a mermaid tail or a Cinderella dress or fairy wings.
Tried stopping it, but I couldn't really.
Did you fight against it for a little while?
I was trying to. I didn't really know there was anything to do about it. I started looking up things.
Where did you look them up?
Just on the internet, I just looked up what to do if you feel like a girl, and I found all these websites, and they were saying that you're able to get special surgery and that you can actually come out that way. And I found some videos too about some other children feeling that way.
She's here in person tonight, so say hello to Jazz.
It was American transgender girl, Jazz Jennings, who made the biggest impression.
Thank you so much. Kids and teens out there, I just want them to know that it's okay to step out of your shadows and just be who you are. Just be true to yourself and express yourself.
She had tears in her eyes. Like, she just said, oh, you know, I'm so glad I saw that. Like, it was, she felt less alone, and just came with just a million questions came out of that for her. And she watched it over and over again.
It's made me realise that there was ways to sort of cope.
And before you saw Jazz, did you not know?
I didn't think there was anything to do about it.
What was it like when you realised you could do something?
I felt very happy then. And I told my mum that night.
After the initial high, Isabel started to get very down. Children can be most vulnerable between the time of coming out and getting treatment.
It took 3 or 4 weeks to go through it, but just to see how upset she was, she would come home miserable. I don't see a future for myself. I remember her saying one night.
She'd been crying and we'd been having a discussion, and she was upset so much of the time at that point in time. And she said, I can't, and she's whispered, like, I can't see what the future looks like for me. And that was awful. And that, like, I think for me, that was the point where the confusion kind of melted away a little bit, and you just sort of think, well, God, we've only got one job here, and that is to help her create a future that she can live with, that she can thrive in. And, yeah.
How hard would it be if you had parents that didn't support you?
If that actually happened, I'd probably have run away by now or killed myself. Tobias crouches in front of me, his hand on my left shoulder.
Studies show 30% of young people who don't get treatment attempt suicide and 50% self-harm.
The pressure is still there.
One of the first things I came across was this higher rate of suicide in children who have this issue, and I think that put a bit of fear into me, and I was like, well, no, hang on, I've got a happy child, this can't be.
Love you.
I'm not going to do anything that's going to, you know, not make sure she doesn't have a long and happy life.
I haven't had an easy life.
Hi guys, how you going?
Hello.
Good, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
What's your name?
My name is Paige Elliott Phoenix.
Paige Elliott Phoenix is a transgender man who came out on X Factor.
So I'm a female to male transsexual.
Wow. Okay.
What Paige didn't share with the audience that night was his struggle just to survive.
I told you
When Paige was young, she didn't know she was transgender. Back then, many of these kids were treated as if they had a mental disorder.
Psychotherapy was seen as the way of curing, and people were put through this process against their will, and we all know that psychotherapy against will doesn't work anyway. And in fact, that process, I think, scarred a lot of the trans people of the 60s and 70s and perhaps even 80s.
Home sweet home.
Backstage, Paige Elliott Phoenix is getting ready to perform at a transgender health conference.
I know, my secret's out. Trans Men Wear Foundation.
Paige has come a long way since the confusing and traumatic years of his childhood. His parents tried to get their child to conform.
It started with gentle encouragement to, you know, start to conform, to which I just bucked massively. And then I guess the older I got, the more pressure was being applied, the more that I rebelled and made life very difficult for my parents.
Since the age of 11, Paige lived in numerous foster homes, shelters, and even on the street.
We couldn't find a way out of it. We couldn't find a way to understand what was happening, and my folks just didn't have the skill set to be able to deal with it.
It wasn't until Paige was 32, after searching the internet, he discovered he was transgender. His parents had no idea.
If we'd known what was going on, you know, it could have been dealt with really differently. If my parents had been able to access some support around it, it could have been really different. I honestly believe that they did the best that they could with what they had.
7 years ago, Paige had chest surgery.
It's shocking how many people, when you consider the stats with the major population, how many of our community are in that much pain and suffering that much. For young trans boys, of the terror of breasts growing, of a menstrual cycle starting, which, you know, is just on every level so wrong for them, and not natural for them.
Four Corners has spoken to young transgender men who, before treatment, bound their breasts and even stabbed them.
We've had very little time to rehearse, so we're going to be winging a fair bit of it.
To help keep his masculine appearance, Paige injects himself every 10 days with testosterone.
I was a 56 kilogram female and hairless. I'm now a 85 kilogram bear.
So a person that transitions on testosterone late will be basically appearing as your average male within 12 to 18 months, and probably would have deepened his voice within 3.
Yeah, just stick with your ethereal, kind of what you were doing in the rehearsal for that lyric. It was great. And
Tonight, Paige is singing a duet with transgender woman Coco.
Bad dress rehearsal means good show.
That's right. Let's do it, beautiful. Okay.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Chocolate on.
Up. Lipstick.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Paige contacted his mother recently, hoping for a reunion.
The reply was, I think the sentence that stuck out was, to see you as you are breaks my heart. Yeah, so I was like, ouch, okay, yeah. And I kind of hit a point with it where I was like, yeah, you know what, holding this, even just holding this space for you and waiting for you is breaking my heart.
I have my mind whose dreams have all deserted. I I changed my face, I changed my name, but no one wants you when you lose. Don't give up, 'cause you have a friend. Don't give up, you're not beaten yet.
Back in Melbourne, Isabel is making one of her regular visits to the gender clinic at the Royal Children's Hospital.
We're here. Oh, we're gonna finish.
It was here 12 months ago that she was first assessed. The numbers of children presenting at clinics around Australia have skyrocketed.
So we've had a huge increase in new referrals to the Royal Children's Hospital, from 1 in 2003 to 100 new referrals just this year. And this is replicated across the Western world. So the same numbers are being seen across America, across Europe.
Hello.
Oh, hello. Come through. Hi, Isabel. How are you? You well?
Doctors like Michelle Telfer don't think there's more transgender kids than 10 years ago. They're just coming out and accessing treatment much earlier.
What's changed is that people are feeling safe to come forward because of social change, but they're also becoming aware that we have treatments that can help them. And that's something that's only been around for about 15 years around the world, and probably only 10 years here in Australia.
It's often difficult to diagnose children before puberty, as their gender can be fluid.
That's the reason that we don't use any medical interventions until puberty has started, because the evidence shows that if you look at the number of children in early childhood who show gender non-conforming behaviour, only about 25% of those children will identify as transgender in adolescence.
Many of the children will later identify as lesbian, gay or bisexual. Some will be heterosexual.
Once someone's gone into puberty, and I know Isabel isn't quite there yet, but if she reaches puberty and she's still identifying strongly as female, we know it's not a phase. There's 99.5% chance she's going to persist with that female gender identity. So, Isabel, do you have any questions for me?
How do the hormone blockers work?
That is a very good question. Now,
Isabel's anxious to start the first stage of her medical treatment, puberty-blocking hormones.
Now, the good thing about this drug is it gives you time to think about what you want to do in the long term without you having to worry about your voice dropping or getting hairy or any of those sorts of things. If you decided a couple of years' time, so you're 11 now, say you were 13, 14 or 15, and you thought, you know what, I don't want to be a female, I'm going to go back to being Campbell, then we can stop the Zoladex.
That won't happen.
No, you know, I don't think that will happen either. But if it does, and it's really important to know that you can make this decision, if it does happen, we can stop this drug and your body goes back to how it would have been with no long-term consequences.
Dr. Telfer takes regular blood samples so she will know when Isabel is on the cusp of puberty and ready for blockers.
Do you have any more questions for me about the blockers?
What was that word called again?
This one?
Yeah.
Gonadotrophin releasing hormone.
Gonadotrophin releasing hormone?
Oh gosh, you could get a job here.
That's hard to say.
That's fantastic.
That's almost longer than supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Yep,
It's
almost.
longer.
10 years ago, children like Isabel didn't have access to this treatment and would have developed masculine features.
And testosterone is the hormone that makes someone look like a man. All right? So it gives you a hairy face, like your dad, and you get hairy legs and hairy arms, and you get a
Like
really...
him again.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello, Campbell.
Hello.
Thanks for coming in and joining us.
How are you?
Good.
Good?
Associate Professor Campbell Paul is Isabel's psychiatrist. With help from Dr. Paul 10 months ago, Isabel started living completely as a girl.
So all the other kids using Isabella.
Before children are given puberty-blocking treatment, they're assessed by at least 5 doctors.
Just look up.
The process for the assessment is very rigorous. There's a team of us that are involved, and in the first instance it's a psychiatrist and adolescent physician or an endocrinologist, and we get a detailed assessment from the family.
All right, just jump on here. As doctors, every decision that we make on a clinical basis is about weighing up the risks versus the benefits. And in this case, what we have is a risk of self-harm and suicide that is extremely high, and yet a risk of regret that is very small. We'll do your height next. Good girl. That's it.
Until recently, Isabel and her family would have been legally bound to go to the family court to get approval for puberty blockers. That all changed after another family took on the court.
I know now how hard it was, how stressful it was for my parents, and how much work it was. And I'm just so thankful to them for going through all that for me, and for all the kids who are transsexual, who now don't have to go to court for that.
The family court forbids the identification of all children and their families who go before it. For this reason, Four Corners has gone to great lengths to disguise Jamie and her mother, using facial prosthetics and digitally altering their voices.
I don't want to be pixelated, because that would kind of be like I'm ashamed, and I'm not ashamed. I just need it. Just my identity is private for the moment.
Hi. Hello. How's your day? It was lovely. How was yours?
Jamie's family challenged the family court's jurisdiction to approve medical treatment of transgender children.
Did you get your assignment in?
Yes.
Good.
From the time he could walk, Jamie never identified as anything else but a girl.
It was very gradual, because at the start I was just wearing girly dress-ups at my house, and then I would go outside in the wild world just as a boy. But gradually I started to change things a bit, like growing my hair longer, trying to wear boys' clothes in a girlish way.
Primary school was terrible.
The teachers didn't understand. There were some really mean kids.
I think school became very difficult for her because school is very gendered, and to have to fit into the role of a boy was extremely difficult for her. She would come home from school saying, "Mum, I go to school disguised as a boy, and it's so hard trying to be a boy." And that language is very indicative of the deep understanding of herself as female. When she was around about 7, she started to say suicidal things.
Like what?
I wish I was dead, essentially. And that's a devastating thing to hear as a parent of a child who's very young. So we knew that it was time to really do something.
Until the talk of suicide, Alison thought her child may have just been going through a phase. Now she knew she had to do more to help her.
I love her with every fibre of my being. She's very insightful. She's very clear. She's not precocious. So I believe her, and I've believed her all along, that she's needed to do this. It's been difficult, but because she is so true to herself, she needed at least one person to have her back And because she is the amazing person that she is, she's got way more than one person.
Pretty, pretty, please, don't you ever feel like you're less than perfect.
Watching her daughter's back has come at a cost.
Ever feel like you're nothing.
I did come across other parents at the first primary school who were outraged by my support of Jamie.
Why?
I think they thought that I was doing it to her for I don't know what reason. Perhaps they thought that I had wanted a daughter, and that's not the case.
How natural does it feel to be a girl?
Very natural, the same as you would feel being a girl, because you just are a girl and there's nothing else to it.
What would your life be like if you couldn't be who you are?
It would be very dark, very bleak, and very short.
Short?
Yeah, very short.
Jamie?
Oh yeah, that's what I was saying.
I love it.
That's
gorgeous.
3 years ago, Jamie needed puberty blocking treatment. Her mother was alarmed to learn it would cost about $30,000 to go to the family court to get approval for it.
Oh, look at that.
Australia is the only jurisdiction in the world that requires a court to approve these treatments.
Unfortunately, that's created a really, really awful situation for young people who are transgender. And it means that a lot of children are not able to access treatment in good time or even before they're 18 because they simply can't get access to lawyers and justice.
It's a lovely colour.
It is.
Isn't it?
It is.
At the time, blood tests showed that Jamie was very close to puberty and her voice was about to break.
What do you think?
It's actually pretty good.
It's actually really nice, isn't it?
It is.
To protect Jamie, her mother didn't tell her how close she was to physically changing. Michelle Telfer recently became Jamie's paediatrician.
T-shirt material too.
Her puberty caused significant distress, significant. And starting the puberty blockers for Jamie was a form of medical emergency for her because she knew that once her voice broke, she could never get by in a body that's congruent with her female gender identity.
Perfect colour, isn't it?
In the meantime, unable to find the money for court, Alison went begging to law firms to act free on their behalf. One agreed.
Otherwise, I do not know what we would have done. We are not wealthy people and we could not have afforded it. If that's the case, then your child misses out on treatment. That's going to improve their lives incredibly and going to give them a future that they can happily walk into rather than a future that they're scared of and that they don't want.
Unfortunately, what the consequences of these decisions have been is that it's affected those who aren't in the court. So the rest of the transgender population as a whole who can't get access to the court process. And what it has done is increase the morbidity and the mortality associated with gender dysphoria by decreasing access to treatment.
The court decided Jamie, who was 11 at the time, could have puberty blockers. But the judge said she couldn't determine now what would be in Jamie's best interests in 6 years' time, when she would need the second stage of treatment, cross-changing hormones.
We had requested that both stages of treatment be awarded at the same time, and that second stage was not granted. We thought that that was unfair because it meant that we would have to go back to court twice for the same diagnosis and the same treatment regime.
Jamie's family appealed against this decision. They also challenged the court's jurisdiction, arguing both stages of treatment should be the decision of the child, their parents and doctors. Diana Bryant, the Chief Justice of the Family Court of Australia, sat on the appeal case known as Re Jamie.
Prior to the decision in Re Jamie, court authorisation was required for what's commonly known as both stages of the treatment.
The appeal was partially successful. Children would no longer have to go to court for puberty blockers. But to obtain the second stage of treatment, the court would have to establish that the teenager was capable of informed consent, known as Gillick competency.
It relates to the child's capacity in a holistic and psychosocial way to give informed consent to the treatment, so that in these kind of cases you'd want to be satisfied that the child concerned was aware of all of the problems, the risks, the dangers. You would want to know that the child was psychologically in a position where they could make these kind of decisions.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Many doctors and families are not happy that young people, who will be about 16 at the time, must still go to court, this time to establish their ability to consent to treatment.
I don't think going back to court is a good thing at all. I don't think it's necessary, to be honest.
I don't think it's necessary that we have to go back to court so they can decide if I'm Gillick competent, because that's just up to the parents and the doctors. I think they will make just as good as a decision as anybody, even better, because they're experts.
For things to change, there would have to be a test case to the full bench of the family court, and then to the High Court. The Chief Justice told Four Corners she's keen to see this happen.
Well, look, I'd like to see that the High Court have the opportunity to examine these kind of cases, these gender identity cases, and to decide whether or not the court has to be involved at all.
But for now, the Chief Justice is prepared to consult with doctors about the costs and the process.
I'm confident that we can put in place a process which will be easily manageable and will not be expensive for parties to be able to come to court and get a decision about capacity to consent.
Jamie's now in high school and no one knows her history. She's just another girl in class.
I think society's changing about these issues as well, and I think it is important to remember that I think from what I've seen it's completely innate. And when you read all of the psychiatric reports and all the reports about how it affects a young person, it is undoubtedly innate.
It's been 15 months since Isabel came out to her parents.
Sometimes people treat me different when they find out that I'm transgender.
Do you look forward to one day just being yourself and not having to have those conversations and just being a girl?
I do have those days sometimes, but not often. I don't often go through a day where I don't have to really do something that involves it.
Isabel faces a lifetime of hormone treatment. At 18, she hopes to take another big step.
Well, by then I can get a sex change, which is an operation where they flip the penis inside out and it turns into a vagina.
Is that important to have?
I could probably wear a lot more suitable girls' clothes, because that gets a bit of a problem because they like bathers and things like that, because I always have to wear a little skirt thing with bathers.
There's no doubt that Naomi and Andrew love their daughter, but they haven't forgotten that they once had a son.
I remember as Campbell. It's
Yeah.
It's interesting looking at old photos. You see, you know it's Isabel, but I see her as Campbell, and I think of Campbell, as the little
Yeah.
baby we had.
And I feel a little bit sad. Like, I don't know, it's weird. I don't miss a son or anything like that. I think I just feel. I feel sad
We've
for
still
the.
got it, but you
Yeah.
grieve for the son.
I don't
I
think I
reckon.
do. Do you?
Oh, I miss Campbell, but I know it's Isabel. And it's hard doing this because Isabel doesn't like seeing old footage of
No.
herself or old photos or
Yeah.
having old photos up, so...
I think she's more herself now than she's ever been, and yeah, I'm so grateful for that. Right, Isabel, you ready?
A year ago, Isabel decided she was ready to come out at school.
She'd bottled it up herself for so many years that now she'd told us, she thought, she was just like, right, we've got to get moving, we've got to get it happening. See ya. Have a good day. See you a bit later, okay? Isabel was very keen to tell the school. And I said, I want you to wait. It's too early yet.
Isabel walked into my office one day and sat down, had a chat, and it turned out that she wanted to have a meeting with me, with Mum and Dad.
And I got home from work the next day and she said to me, I've organised a meeting at school and you're invited. I was like, well, thanks, that's great.
When Isabel arranged that meeting, I hadn't come across anything like this before. I was quite emotional about it, but felt I had to be strong for Isabel and the information that she was giving.
Do you mean teary, like you were that affected?
Yeah, I think so, particularly with the way that Isabel was brave enough to say what she thought.
Slowly, Isabel started changing her appearance at school, wearing her hair longer and girls' trousers. This confused kids, and they started to tease her.
And you've been teased quite a bit, hadn't you?
I counted up to 10 times a day, sometimes even more.
And what sort of things would they say to you?
Well, they would say the most common one was, are you a boy or a girl? And sometimes people would say that how do I explain it? I'm not sure how to say it because they did use a bit of a bad word in it. I don't really want to say that one, but
Tell me what they meant without saying the bad word.
they said to me that I still had a penis, whether or not I dress up in girls' clothes. That one offended me a lot.
Isabel decided to write a letter to all 200 students at her country school.
Hello everyone, I am a transgender child. This means I have a girl's brain inside a boy's body. This has got harder and harder for me the last 5 years.
What was in that letter and what was the point of it?
To get people to understand who I am and to allow me to be myself at school and be able to go out in public in the clothes I wanted. And stop anyone teasing me.
Okay, that was just to get your memory going a little bit about the concept. People
For an individual of her age to come forward and divulge that sort of information is, I think, incredible. To follow that up with the letter, that was really an experience that even parents have come forward, and one parent actually wrote how every time she's read, and she read it several times, she teared up and, took her hat off and had a conversation with her son about it, and being brave and sticking up for Isabel should anything untoward come about with this. So it really had a powerful effect on not just us from a staff point of view, but as a school and a community.
After the letter, the teasing stopped and Isabel started to get on with her life as a girl.
I've certainly seen some changes in Isabel since she's transitioned. When she first arrived at our school, which was 3 years ago, she often kept to herself, very much her own person. But now I've seen her branch out into greater friendships. Since kids have known, they've been more accepting of who she is.
We were just overwhelmed with support. Getting stopped by people I had no idea who they were in the supermarket. Just, you know, we got Campbell's letter just to know we've got your support. Our phone was ringing off the hook.
When times get around, you fall back on us.
It can be a tough road for transgender people who are trying to be true to themselves. But for most, it can be much tougher to stay in the shadows and do nothing.
Sometimes it can be quite a journey to develop the courage to be able to self-support and put yourself out there as you are, especially if you're different to everybody else. But that difference makes you even more beautiful.
The courage that someone must have to go through all of that and still want to pursue being who they feel they are, I just think that's something to be admired.
Well, if you don't be yourself, you're gonna be miserable for your whole life.